56:30. So let me call this regular Board of Public Safety meeting to order. This is a regular meeting that had been adjourned from the November 2nd, 2022 meeting. For the record, today is Wednesday, November 9th. We are in the City Hall auditorium, and it is 6:30 p.m. Participating in person, I have Commissioner Stino, Commissioner McGowan, Commissioner Bandel, Commissioner Passwell, Commissioner McLeod, and we have Commissioner Bandel. She was going to be here. When she shows up, we'll probably. Right, before we get into the meeting, please stand and let's flag.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1, I want to be a motion to open the meeting to the public and members of the public attending in person only.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandel.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McLeod. Questions? Excuse me, no questions on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Open to the public. Our volunteer fire department is the only public. Item 2, I'll entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from October 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandel.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardwell. Questions or comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, I'll entertain a motion to accept Officer Noah Goddard. Is that Noah? Is it Noah? Noe, thank you. Officer Noe Goddard as a regular member of the Trenton Police Department, completing his probationary period at October 22nd, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandel.
Second.
And I heard Commissioner McLeod. Questions on the motion or comments?
I just have a comment. It would be nice to be able to have them down here when we actually approve that. Don't you have enough officers to keep taking them off the street? Yeah, I'm kidding, but it would be nice to, if it's all possible, we do this. Yeah, we just, okay.
Just so we get to know you guys, some of these guys.
Yeah,
you know,
guys, ladies, I don't even know,
Okay.
but I understand the situation.
Right, there being no further comments, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, I entertain a motion to accept Police Chief Wellness Report for September 2022.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandel, second by Commissioner McGowan. Questions or comments on the report? Hearing none. I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, I'll entertain a motion to accept Fire Chief Warden's report for September 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandel.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McGowan. Questions on this report? Hearing none. Yes, no. Who is breathing differently? If there are no questions, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, I'll entertain a motion to accept the EMS provider activity report for September 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto.
Second.
And second by Commissioner McLeod. Open for questions.
I just have a couple of questions on the fire department assist. It says 3. Okay. Now, when they show up at a call, is that considered assist or no?
No, so the fire department assist is when our unit of Verizon scene requests the fire department to respond, whether it be, to gain entrance or whatever. Which, you might respond to a call that is difficult to breathe and you arrive there and it's a cardiac arrest, and we would call for it.
And below on number 6, it says ambulance, the number 911 calls your ambulance service passed on to other provider. So was that passed to our fire department?
No, so that would be passed to mutual aid.
Okay. Winston,
Yeah, yep.
Commissioner, if I can add to that, when mutual aid ambulance comes into the city, the fire department does respond with that.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we have continuity of care for the city. So Trinity is not requesting us, but it's an automatic policy that
you
we
go.
respond.
And just one question I have, and got a couple more from later, but on this report, there was 9 coverage from out of town. I think, but that was September. I believe that we call in 9,
Okay, yep.
9 outside. Do you have any idea how many there were in October? I know you don't have that report, but I was just kind of curious if you would know off the top of your head, which we could talk about later.
Yeah, I don't, you're talking about for the month of October.
Right.
I don't offhand. I suspect it's about in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
Other questions on the report? Hearing none, I'll call the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by volunteer fire departments.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Fernandez, second by Commissioner Claypool, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are open, anything from Tony Phillips here?
Not much, Christmas trees will be in the day before Thanksgiving, we go on sale on that Friday. That's Friday, Saturdays and Sundays only, we're short-handed of people, so that'll be the deal. We've only got 200 trees this year, so they're coming up, I'm up early. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the volunteer? Okay, item 8. Moving into item 8, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Commissioner Montero, second by Commissioner McElroy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You chief.
Good evening, Commissioners. First of all, just want to mention that our department and law enforcement throughout our state and nation had a difficult month last month with the officer-involved murders of 2 Bristol police officers, Lieutenant Dustin DeMonte and Sergeant Alex Hanzi. Our department, I want to thank the board for reaching out to me personally and offering their support of the department. So I appreciate that. Our officers, we had a significant showing at the funeral the day that happened. And I saw Commissioner Elroy there. It was good to see him there as well. And I've been in touch with Chief Gould on a couple of different occasions, and he's doing well. And I was with the deputy chief from Bristol this morning, and he's the officers in Bristol are doing as best they can considering the circumstances. As a result of that, we've been working. Our peer support program is being enhanced. This morning I was in New Haven, it was a Bureau of Justice officer involved, officer suicide training seminar for executive level chiefs that I was involved in, and there's some programs that we're going to be bringing forward to the department. We also Sergeant Gonska has been tasked with being our peer support leader for the department. He's been doing this job now for the last couple of years, and he's been doing an excellent job keeping an eye on the mental health of our officers. So he's going to be continuously tasked with additional duties related to the peer support program. He's taken the approach of really being interested in the well-being of our officers, and this is something that he's really interested in helping. We've had social workers have appeared at the PD. They've come to the PD to talk to our officers concerning this and some of the issues that they may be having as well. And of course, all of our EAP personnel are available to them also. Unfortunately, 2 of our officers were classmates of these 2 individuals. Actually, 3 of them were classmates. 2 were classmates with Officer Hamzy. 1 was classmates with Lieutenant DeMonte. So it hit them very hard as well. But the true hero is the officer who put an end to this tragic situation that had occurred. So our department continues to support Bristol as needed, and we will continue to do so, and obviously continue to keep a watch over our officers as they deal with calls for service and things along that line. Chief,
Can I interrupt you for
Yeah.
1 second? Has your response changed for domestics since this?
there was no, there's no need at this point for any training, for doing any additional or additional training related to the way we handle domestic calls. As there's going to be obviously reporting and after action reports related to this whole incident. There may be some lessons learned as a result of this, but quite frankly, you could have had the best approaches anybody could have had, and nobody would have been prepared for this type of situation. This was one of those circumstances, and this is what our officers face on a regular basis and on a daily basis. Is that every call now, there are people out there who have no regard for our officer safety or the well-being of our officers. So this was an ambush. The officers obviously had no idea that this was going to happen. Nobody had any idea that this was going to happen. And the best tactics and training in the world would not have prepared them for what would occur. But unfortunately, as a result of bad circumstances, there is good that comes out of it, and that we see if there is a way that we can enhance or do better with our training. And there's a way that if there's any best practices that we can learn as a result of that. So it's just a tragic incident. It was too close to home for all of us. And especially the fact that there's relationships with these officers and members of the department. Gavin Morrell just graduated the academy on November 4th. So he's graduated from the Britain Academy. So he's just started his FTO program on Monday. He's excited to continue to work with the department. We're continuing to work on accreditation. Our first accreditation meeting is in January. Captain Gonzalez is overseeing the accreditation program right now, along with Lieutenant Rouleau. It's a very tasking assignment, and they're doing an excellent job in trying to meet the requirements related to accreditation. Again, as you know, accreditation was a result of the police accountability bill that was passed by the legislature. We received 2 grants, a DWI grant and a distracted driving grant. It was about $75,000.
Yeah, and there's another 10,000 in the works.
Okay, so we have about $85,000 in grants coming to the department for selective enforcement. Torrington High School was a victim of a swatting call back in October. Us, along with East Hartford, Guilford, and Windsor Locks, responded to what was called in as an active shooter. We're seeing more and more swatting type calls taking place within our state. The FBI and Dennis is working on trying to identify these types of actors. It's very, very difficult, but we are aware of that. And the school administration, our SROs are all aware of these things that are going on as well. We've been in touch with Sue Bonowski concerning that situation. And it was obviously just a false alarm. Finally, we just today, we started accepting online payments for permits and for paying parking tickets. Any type of FOI fees can now be paid online. I'm going to give credit to our treasurer, Dan Farley, who assisted us with this. And one of my clerks, Jane Hall, who asked that this be done to bring our technology up to speed as it relates to collecting fees and fines. So we're looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a good thing. On the emergency management situation, our COVID positivity rate is 7.13. That's as of today. In the last 7 days, there were 81 cases in Litchfield County. Chief Warden, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about Norfolk, but there was a request for equipment from Region 5, which fire department delivered up to Norfolk through the emergency management office. We're also in the situation, as you're aware, we got the flu right now. We had 723 reported cases in the last 2 weeks. There's 8 cases identified in Litchfield County right now. The highest number of flus, people with flus in Fairfield County is 124. Again, we're just ensuring that people get out there and get their flu shots along with their vaccines. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief?
Just a quick question, do you know, when I got a call, a couple of calls about people that were, just applying to the police department, and, I know right now we still are going through a list that we have, so they're kind of excluded from that. Do you know when that list expires? So we can kind of start over again, and, you know, they're trying to get an idea if there's even a chance of, you know, they would end the process soon, and
They have to go through, we base the list stays active
right.
unless they're excluded as a result of a background investigation or they're,
Well, they just went into the consortium or whatever, just now.
so they just took the test.
Right,
So then,
so they won't be on the list.
so, yeah, what we do is we're gonna go through what we currently have, which you were, and Commissioner Spino were part of.
Yeah.
Get their backgrounds done, and I think we're probably about 2 or 3 right now that we're moving forward with. And then once we exhaust that, we will discuss with our personnel department to send out letters for people who have applied through the police app, through the CPCA test site. And they will get letters to come to an interview down the road, whenever that may be. But it's going to depend upon where we are with our current applicants. So several applicants that we both interviewed have already dropped out, that we have given conditional offers to. They're, you know, they've gone to other agencies or other departments. So we're going down the list. I think we have 3 right now, 2 or 3, from my understanding. We're doing backgrounds on them right now. And of course, the other issue is that we got to ensure that we have seats in these categories for the meetings. So to give people conditional offers, we want to make sure that we can get them into the training that they need.
You're gonna lose one of us.
Otherwise, we're going to lose them.
Yeah, just trying to give them an idea, you know, time frame of when they'll even have a chance, that's all. So, okay, thanks, Jim.
Just one, I actually have a question about academy seats, but that's kind of an answer already. Tommy, we projected that in the near future, but the online processing, I think is a great thing. Are the fees passed on to those who are paying online, or are we getting that part of our cost? Or?
No, the fee is added on to the, so in other words, if, you know, it was a 3.75% or 3%, something along that fee is added to the actual, that processing fee or that administrative, I guess it's a credit card administrative fee is added to the individual who's paying online. So we're not absorbing that. That's not a fee that we, that is deducted from the amount of the fine or the permit fee.
And the option is still there to pay the traditional way, so you
yes.
can avoid that fee if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I thank you.
Questions for Chief Bowman? Chief Warren?
Good evening. Just to bring you up to speed, I think I reported a few meetings ago that our boat was needing a replacement. We have ordered it with a new trailer, so hopefully it'll be here probably about 2 months, and then we'll be back to status quo for our water rescue responses. By then it'll be frozen, but at any rate, that's into the process, and we were able to procure that. We're still dealing with our gear extractor, which is what takes the contaminants out of our gear after fires and different exposures to things. We're kind of getting close to a break-even point where we say we either have to replace it or see if we can get them fixed, because every time we bring them out there, there's a fee with the parts and paying for that. The last time around, we thought we had it fixed, they were able to run through a full cycle on its own, everything was good, and then after the guy left, started having issues again. So we're still using it, but it takes somebody to go hit a reset button constantly and monitor things. So we're making do for now, but eventually I think we're going to have to look at replacing that. That'll be a fairly large expenditure, but until we get to that point, I don't want to be premature in saying that it needs to be replaced. We recently settled the RFP for replacement turnout gear, which is our PPE that we use for structural firefighting. And we're looking at doing 10 to 11 sets this year. So somewhere around $29,000 out of that. But we have selected a vendor and got all that ironed out. So hopefully we can proceed this month with getting stuff in order, because as you guys all know, that everything is a wall, takes forever. So we'll hopefully jump on that as soon as we can, because we have two guys coming in, it's going to be a good year. And we have a life expectancy on our turnout here. So what we typically look at is a 10-year shelf life for gear, 5 years of those are frontline, replacement gear, and then it gets destroyed after that. So trying to get that system in place and going, and this is a great stride to do that. Our new guy continues to do very well. The Connecticut Fire Academy, the group program, his grades are in the 90s. Had a chance to meet up with him the other day, and I'm gonna have tomorrow morning to watch him do some light burns and see how he's doing, but he seems very enthusiastic and very happy to be part of Torrington Fire Department and community, so looking forward to where that goes. I'm sure you guys have heard somewhere through the way around that we had a few upticks in our mutual aid responses to surrounding departments for fires, and one of them being Norfolk. So that's put a little bit more burden on the department for overtime and trying to hire back and staff correctly for that, which will parlay me into the Norfolk response. Last Saturday, they had a tanker rollover. They requested us for the hazmat team response, to which we went and we mitigated the problem as best we could for them at that time. And then as of Sunday evening, they requested an engine company from us for at least Monday or Tuesday to stand by while they were doing the excavation and removal of the product. And then it was quickly determined that it's going to be at least a week event. So we're committed to them all the way through Friday, as long as we can provide the manpower or contractual language. I can honestly say it's probably going to go longer than that, and we'll have to address that as it goes. This is all of the expenditures that will come back to Torrington are reimbursable through FEMA and through the insurance company of the tanker company itself. There's a lot of paperwork of just dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's to make sure that you account for every single piece of equipment you use, every piece of apparatus, all the personnel, if anything was exposed, if no longer serviceable, et cetera. So as it's an ongoing thing, it's hard to give a dollar figures for what Torrington's going to be reimbursed for at this point. But we'll have a better handle hopefully as we go into the weekend, so we look at this is where we're at now, and this is the forecast. Initially, as of Tuesday, they were looking at about a $16 million fee for that, and I'm forecasting going to go lower because they're still finding very large pockets and affected wetlands up there. So there's a lot of environmental concerns. So it's a very big incident up in our little neck of the woods. Moving past that, we are currently in the process of applying for the PSA for the city of Torrington, which is our medical control of what we do for our service area that we do. That gives us the ability to set the parameter of how that's going to be delivered, et cetera. There's a lot of moving parts with that. We're working with Trinity, and we're hoping by December we can have something ironed out, get paper that we present back to the board and say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. It's just more of a matter of just getting all players on the same sheet of music and making sure it's done for the right reasons. And I believe that completes what I have to report. Other questions?
Chief, just a question on that Norfolk situation.
Yes, sir.
With surrounding towns like Canaan, Cobra, Winston, why is Torrington respond? You don't think the regional hazmat team?
Torrington is the regional hazmat team for this area, all the way in the northwest corner. So when it comes to the actual event itself, we go there, we mitigate it, get everything kind of locked down, working with DEP and a lot of other agencies. And from that point on, it's a slower process, but they still need coverage for fire suppression. So what we're doing up there right now is we're providing one engine company with 3 people on it, and we're connecting hose lines into the foam trailer, and we're standing by in case something sparks as they're trying to excavate things. So as you can imagine, with that amount of product, they have over 8,200 gallons of fuel in the ground. So as they're excavating this out, one will spark, and then you have a pretty big issue. So that's what we're up there for, as a preventative measure. They're relying on their mutual aid partners outside of Torrington as much as they can, but again, as we all know, volunteerism as a whole is very hard to have right now, especially for extended periods of time, for the 8-hour day and things like that, because everybody has to go to work and have their livelihood. So obviously, we're somebody that they're looking at for doing that. we wouldn't be offering it if it wasn't reimbursable, because obviously it's too much of a cost to the city and that kind of thing. So when they say it's voluntary, it's not voluntary, the members will be compensated, but we're gonna get that money back in the rear, so to speak, once we get all the fee stuff straightened out. So, but we're not forcing people to say, you have to go up there, not taking away from our ability to provide services here in the city.
And what piece of apparatus is up there?
I'm sorry?
What engine's up there?
Engine one.
Engine one's up there. So can they leave if we have an incident here?
Yes and no. If something gets catastrophic happen here, obviously we have to move away, but that's the same time we don't want to leave our mutually farm. But if something were to happen, it would have to be addressed on the fly. But they're not taking away from our ability to provide service.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some questions for your chief. Last meeting, we talked about all the calls that we were answering. You know, a lot more that you were doing a study of some sort, doing a lot more medical calls than we had been doing before. And I understand that. You know that we get the text, from LCD, and I know that some of them are very generic. When you get them in, you can't really read into what the call is, but just from my little experience, it looks like we are going to a lot of calls with fire trucks that we really, as a supplementary group, we shouldn't be going to. I mean, that's kind of a question, but more than a statement. But at the same time, I wanted to ask Jeff, do we need another ambulance in Torrington? And, are we covering, not intentionally, but covering for Trinity? You know what I mean? Are we doing the right thing in the fire department? And are we doing the right thing in Trinity? Do we need another ambulance, which would keep our fire trucks in the house instead of going to all these calls that, again, appeared not to be necessary? And I use that because I don't get the details and I don't need to know the details. But
Understood. If I can answer it before you, Jeff, please. The intent of our increased response to certain types of calls was to say, very often, I'm going to use the North End station as an example. If Mrs. Smith, 3 blocks out from the station, is in the chest pain, I guarantee you, almost better than Powerball or anything else, that our response time will be significantly better than Trinity's. So we're able to go there, maybe administer aspirin, oxygen, start taking vials, start providing patient care very quick. And to me, that's a benefit to Mrs. Smith and any taxpayer, doesn't matter who it is. And I think that's a great thing. And that's ultimately what we're looking to do with our increased response. But at the same time, as I hope I explained the last meeting we had, is we need a little time to look at the call types that we did include and whether we are being beneficial or whether it's really just spinning wheels or spinning wheels kind of thing. And we're monitoring that very closely and looking at all that. It's by no means to be a supplement to Trinity or to provide a service that Trinity is not doing anything. They're doing an outstanding job with what they're doing. Just to actually be partners with them and provide a better care package for that 911 call that comes in for somebody. And we're in the process, like I said, of collecting all that data, but it takes time because one of the things I also kind of went over a little bit is from what I've seen in my short time here as chief is there are spikes in calls and those spikes can be 2 or 3 days long and then they kind of drop off again, et cetera. So when we first implemented this, we noticed a big uptick in calls, but was that based off of the foundation that's up here and then we're adding 3 or 4 calls to it? Or is it based off down here and now we're looking at being level? Well, that's a big difference in what we're looking at per picture. And with that said, the ultimate goal that we have is we still have a core mission, which is to provide fire rescue services. And we don't want to take away from that ability. So we're watching it very closely. If something looks like it's gone awry, we're going to pull that right away. But in the meantime, I might work this right out a little bit and see how it's doing. As far as the membership of the department, I've polled most of them to be like the increased call volume, are they feeling they're making a difference, et cetera? And by and large, they all feel they're making a difference, and it's a great opportunity for them to get out in the community and serve our citizens better. But it also provides them an opportunity to get the buildings that they've been in before. And people look around, so God forbid we ever fire there, they have an idea of the layout. So it makes it easier for them and safer for them to operate on a fire department. It also gives them an opportunity to touch the community. Statistically speaking, as a fire service, doesn't matter what city it's in, a fire department usually touches somebody's life about once in their career for fire-related calls. When you get at the EMS side of that, you're looking at 3 to 4, sometimes 5 times in their lifetime that you're actually able to interact with somebody and make a difference in their life. And that's very important when it comes to community relations and building support and trust with the community. So this is a win thing for us, but we also have to look at that overall picture and saying, okay, we're overstretching ourselves and a few things like that. And then to Commissioner Meadows' point at the last meeting was, there's cost to doing that because of wear and tear of vehicles and et cetera. So all that's being taken into consideration. And this is right now, like I said, a test phase, but the true only way to test it is to actually do it. Okay, you can sit around on paper all day long and talk about it, but until you do it, you say, yeah, there's your fact.
No, sure, and I understand the intent, and I support that intent. My concern, especially just, as you said, we can study it. So I don't have too much time on my hands, so I do see these, and I'm just wondering the same things Commissioner Benedetto mentioned last meeting. Doing it is one thing, doing it with, the engines that we have and the wear and tear on them, is that going to work out? That's kind of where,
Yeah.
that's my concern, and people are always, especially if they don't really understand, what the heck are you rolling up there with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
a fire truck, we call the ambulance, that type of thing.
There's a lot of things to it, and we're not going to calls where somebody has a hurt finger or a bloody nose or something like that. We're going to high acuity calls. So somebody with chest pain, somebody with difficulty breathing. We're evaluating right now our psychiatric calls that we're going on because very often we're waiting for PD to go there and secure the scene for us. And during that time frame, we're looking at, well, by that time, Trinity's on scene, and there really isn't a need for us to go. And we'll be there. So those are calls that we have to look at backing off of now, from the learning experience that we're doing with this test. So again, it's an evaluation period.
How long do you think that you feel you need to do this?
I'd like to have at least a few months, and we're just over a month into it right now, because again, I don't want to look at snapshot of time, because that's not gonna be potentially ready to look at, we need to look at something, but it's not a long-term thing, and then we're gonna reevaluate as administration, say, all right, did we make a positive effect on these type of calls, but these were not, so we're gonna drop these, and those kind of things. So it's still very new and raw.
And Chief, why do you think there's a need for the fact that we have an ambulance service in town that we haven't had any issues with? Why do you think there's a need that we need to show up to more calls than this board voted on going to?
It's not a matter of more calls, and from my hearings, anyhow, again, I'm still learning because I'm new, is the original intent was to go on most of these calls anyhow. But when we started doing our supplemental first responder, they just weren't included for whatever reason. I don't know the history, and I'm not going to claim to. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, it doesn't matter what it is. McDonald's down the street from the North End Station, somebody is having a seizure, or somebody's having a pretty critical call.
No,
And
and
we have
been
staff
through this.
sitting there. To me, it's like, yes, we should be doing something with that, but unfortunately, you can't build a dispatch system to address, okay, this one call came in, you're gonna go. It has to kind of be more broad in the sense that these are the call types that they're gonna dispatch the fire department to. And that's what we're trying to balance right now, to say, do these call types still fit what we're trying to do? Or can we tweak them? But you can't say on every other call that, hey, we're going this one, but we're not gonna go on this one.
No, I understand. And the reason we did that is just what you said, the mile radius around the fire department, that they get there quicker. But to send our truck all the way to East Main Street, I think that ambulance would get there before our fire department would bring that engine out.
Again, this is the other issue is, I can't tell you where Trinity is at any given moment. They can be tied up on the south end of the city, and pretty deep into it, and yes, some fire trucks will get there quicker. The next call comes in, they could be sitting somewhere on these sides, they're gonna get the quicker, but I have no way of knowing that, and to develop a system based off of one thing or the other. Again, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do that. So it's one of those things you say, we're gonna commit to these call types. And I hope in the future we'll develop better communication with Trinity, that whether it's through radios or something, that we're able to wave us off quicker, but we may still start an initial response, which is all of it.
So do you think it's a good idea to put the EMS committee back together?
So, as you heard, Chief Gordon mentioned a little bit earlier, we've met a couple of times to discuss the PSA. And that PSA is a piece of the EMS plan. So we'll be looking at all of this holistically, and I do believe that it's a good idea. That EMS committee is, the hospital, Trinity, the fire chief, myself, okay, who else is on that committee? But we can certainly bring back all of the reports or a full report to the board for the board to review and determine, what policies do you want to develop as a result of that? What influence do you want to have over the EMS plan, which does have to be modified, I think. Is it every couple of years, every 5 years?
That's about five.
Every 5 years.
I don't know the last one. Top of my head.
They want to say it was before the pandemic. So we're already a couple of years in that plan. So.
And I just have one more question. And, could you break up a fire company to go on these EMS calls? Say 2 guys from the north end jump in that pickup truck that we have and show up at EMS call instead of tying up a whole engine company.
I understand what you're saying, and on paper it sounds great, but the problem is the next call is a fire. Now what do we do? So separating companies is a dangerous way to talk.
No, I understand, but
It's
we
the
have
same thing, I mean, again, I'm not trying to talk over you. The guys go to a supermarket to get their food or something, and very often the concerned citizen will say, do you have to see the whole truck? Because everybody has to go and those kind of things. And
Nobody say you have to park on the fire lane.
the reason why we stay together as a crew is because we don't know what our next call is going to be or when it's going to be, and we need to be able to respond to that as a crew intact for the safety of the crew. But it's also, those are opportunities that we can use as a positive to say, well, come over with the truck, let's talk about this. I spent time doing some community relations things. So there's a lot more to it than just that simple. But when it comes to doing EMS responses and things like that, it's just a dangerous way to go if you're going to start separating crews. Because we have a minimum staffing for a reason on each piece of apparatus that supports our efforts on the fire ground. Which is very complicated when you look at how many people it takes to ventilate a roof, how many people it takes to do a search or go there, or stretch a hose line in there, or get a water supply. So that's why those crews are together in that.
No, I understand. My only question was, is if you send 2 guys, you still got 2 guys on the engine. So if you tie 4 guys that are called an EMS call, they cannot leave, correct? But if you tie 2, you still have 2
Once
available.
Trinity is on scene,
Yeah.
or we can make a positive confirmation. So here's the thing that we're dealing with right now. By law, if you will, when we commit to the EMS call, we're committed to it, whether it's a 4-person company or a 3-person company, it doesn't matter. You're committed to it because you're the responder going to that. If a higher acuity call for what we call that is maybe a structural fire or something comes in, there's no reason why the officer on that piece of apparatus can't bring you back to LCD, get confirmation that Trinity is responding, get an ETA from them, and make a decision on that to say, okay, yes, we're passing to them. You need to make that confirmation. You can't just leave because then that's abandonment. But as long as you can guarantee somebody's coming to that call and that person's going to get the care whether they were requesting, you have a little bit of fluctuation. But the fact of the matter is the amount of things that happens not very often. So it's not something that happens, 3 or 4 times a day or even 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, we're lucky it's a couple times a year. And I can tell you from my past experience in Manchester, it's never happened. So,
But Torrington, it might happen.
anything is possible. I've never said never. But, we have a system in place, it's just like if Trinity, for whatever reason, was not able to respond, then yeah, we don't have, but we don't have anyhow, because we have to respond with our mutual aid ambulance company. So it's not different.
Yeah, and I was just wondering how this all came about. I didn't know if Trinity wasn't showing up or they weren't getting out to your calls. Jeff, is there a delay in your service?
No, so, I mean, I think he asked the question, before whether we need another ambulance. I think, the short answer is yes. So we, perfect example, we responded to 10 911 emergencies the other day in 51 minutes. It doesn't matter how many ambulances you have parked here, you're gonna pass calls. So, we, in the MOU is built in that we will provide one ALS unit, one BLS unit, and a fly car. So, we obviously never go underneath that, and many times we go over it. So as an example, we, mostly during the day, we staff 2 paramedic staffed ambulances as well as the fly car. We also, the city is changing. You'd be astounded at what people dial 911 for. And unlike other states, we don't get to triage that. So, if somebody calls for a nosebleed and the next call in line is a cardiac arrest, unfortunately, the nosebleed is getting the ambulance first. So other states do triage. That's not the way it happens in Connecticut. So, when you have 2 ambulances, some of the other things that I brought up, as we get busier, the hospital gets busier. I waited in triage 28 minutes the other day with a patient still on my stretcher. So, you can't clear for another call until you've given them a report, taken them off your stretcher, and then you can clear. So, other things that have changed is, every patient years ago was brought to a community hospital. That's changed by the state also. So certain types of heart attacks are going to go to a hospital where they can perform a cardiac cath. Certain types of traumas have to go to a hospital that's at least a level 1 or level 2 trauma center. So, this ties that unit up now for a prolonged amount of time. I think the chief spoke also of psychiatric patients. So we get a lot of calls for, respond and stage. So the police department has to go there, has to make sure that the scene is safe, figure out what's going on. There's sometimes where we're staging half an hour. It's there's a lot of things going on there before they can really make the scene safe. So there's just so much that has changed in the last couple of years. So I think, the short answer to that is yes. Again, we did almost 700 calls, but we passed 10 of them. And sometimes I'm astounded that we don't pass more because of the amount of emergencies. It's not so many, how many calls you do a day, it's how many you do in an hour, or you do in half an hour. The chief alluded to that. You could sit there for 3 or 4 hours twiddling your thumbs, not doing anything, and then get 5 or 6 emergencies all within a couple of minutes. It's just, it's not just this city, but it's kind of unique here, it seems like.
So we asked, as a board of safety, did we ask your company for another ambulance? How does that work?
We've been meeting,
It's a contract we negotiate.
yeah, so we have been meeting with the chief, and we're trying to set up a meeting with that so we could, discuss that.
I'd like to say I'm glad that you're having these meetings, discussing that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I think that I would have liked to have known you were doing that. Not that we should be there or anything like that, but half of these questions could have been either avoided or put off right now if we knew that you were meeting to discuss this or discuss the situation.
So.
That's all, as we're asking all these questions,
So 2
this is all
meetings
news to us,
If I may, so 2 meetings ago, I did advise the board that we were revisiting the PSA. That was a conversation. These meetings that we're having are in context of that. So I did advise the board that was a conversation that we have been having. Deputy Chief Tripp, Chief Board, and myself. obviously, the board had been asking questions about how frequently mutual aid is brought in for a ambulance call. That was also part of the reason that we said, let's go back into that PSA. The MOU with Trinity, this is a contract that was negotiated 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Almost 5, now we're 4 years and counting.
Right, and that contract goes through May. So obviously, these are administrative functions of my office and of the fire chief's office. Knowing that May will be here before we know it, this is when we start having those conversations with. So I'm not sure how much more the board would need to be involved in any of those negotiations, but those are administrative functions, those are management functions.
Yeah, I understand that, just maybe a little more knowledgeable of what was going on, that's all.
I think we have to look back, and for the city of Torrington, we still want this to be 20-some years ago. We have to realize that times have changed. How about getting another fire truck? When I first started, we had 3 engines on a ladder truck, and now we have 2. There was 16 on the job years ago. When I got hired, there was 14, now we're down to 12. So the numbers are increasing. Since the 70s, fire departments in the United States, except for Torrington, was shocked when I got here, have been doing medicals, and we didn't start until 2012. So this is still pretty new to us, especially for the Board of Safety and other people in the city here that's not too familiar with response to fire service across the country. And I think we just got to get used to the fact that times are changing and we're going to need more police officers, more ambulances, and more fire trucks in the city because the city's growing and the number of calls are increasing. 25% of the call over the Torrington Fire Department is simultaneous alarms, which means every time a truck goes out, at the same time, within 2 to 3 minutes, another truck has to go to another call. We have to separate. So it's not a matter of wear and tear on the truck and stuff like that. It's providing service of public safety to the citizens of Torrington. So I would like the chief to continue his research on the medical end of it to see what really is happening in the city for medical runs for the fire department part. And I've worked with Jeff for years, and I know how busy Campion Safety, the old times, yeah, Trinity gets with multiple calls constantly. And if you think about it, there's about 40,000 people in the city of Torrington, not including everybody that comes into the city. So our numbers are going to increase, and we need to start planning and preparing for that. It's not going to go away. And firefighters, just to let you know, Commissioner Benedetto, fire trucks cannot run with 2 guys on it because we have to respond to motor vehicle accident tests, material calls, elevator entrapment, water rescues, whatever it may be. And to split up guys too much is just not going to work. Running 3 on an engine company, which is happening across the country now, is terrible in my opinion. To have an engine that big with the amount of equipment and stuff that we have to do, to only have 3 on it, especially when one has to stay with the pump and work with the truck. That means 2 firefighters have to go into the burning building now instead of 3. So we're going backwards in the world, we're going backwards in the city of Torrington. I think it's time for us to step up and start making some good decisions. Money's not the most important thing to me. I know it is to a lot of people, but my main goal is the safety of the police officers and the firefighters and the taxpayer. That's why I joined the Board of Public Safety. It's for safety, not for really any other reasons. There's plenty of people out there that'll handle the money end of it. So I don't want things to slack off and get off track when it comes to the actual safety of the citizens and the police officers and firefighters.
No, totally understood, and money is a huge object in the city of Torrington with the mill rate we have. And I would love to give the fire department an ambulance. I talked to when Chris Pepler was deputy, and we investigated it. It was too much money. And then what comes with that is working comps cases. And then it just escalates from there. And people get hurt, people get burned out. And that's what I don't want to happen in Torrington. We're going to show calls. These guys are running call to call to call, and then they're going to start burning out. And then Trinity's going to keep turning around like they're turning around now, And there's no reason for us to be there. So that was my big concern. And then if that fire truck breaks, it's $1 million. That's my other concern. So you have to look at money. Safety is a big concern, but there's a price.
For me, I think also, I would like him to continue the study, because then we will have actual numbers and evidence as to what is going on and how we can proceed from there. And what, like you said, the contract, again, is not coming up until May, so by that time, the study will be over, so I think we should do that.
And I agree with the chief study, totally, we've done studies in Torrington for the last 50 years. So what's another one?
Well, that's nice about this one, it's a grassroots one, it's internal, so we're not paying somebody else, we're not paying for it, we're actually doing what we have, so.
We can do the study, but at the end of the end result is it's gonna cost money that we don't have.
Well, it's not gonna cost anything here, other than to do the study, but that's minimal, that's pennies on the dollar, if you ask me. And to your point about, you know, if an apparatus breaks down, being $1 million to replace the apparatus, yes, but not to maintain it and to repair it. You know, tires wear out, ball bearings wear out, things like that, and we replace those as needed. We maintain the trucks well. We have a great highway department that does a great job of keeping these trucks up and running for us and doing whatever needs to be done, and to their credit. So we're not looking at millions of dollars, you know, just based on a small study we're doing or because we have an increased thing. We're just looking at potential more wear and tear. So you take a truck that if you hope to get 20 years out of, maybe you get 18 out of. But those are all forecasted numbers that we have to look at and say, how much is this really doing? Because we can look at the fleet maintenance reports and say, okay, since we took over this, let's say long term, not just on a study, over the past 5 years, we noticed a 5% increase in repair costs, things like that. Those are things that will help us budget for things and be able to better say when are we going to get rid of replace things, et cetera. But again, until that actually occurs, we can only look at that whole thing and say, okay, this is what we're estimating. So.
And I would just add that all of this has to be looked at in context, you know, of what is the long-term goal. I'm hearing Commissioner McElroy, what is the long-term goal? How do all of these partnerships interplay with that goal? You know, we have a contract, and in that contract is embedded automatic extensions. What do those extensions look like? Is it just 2 vehicles and a flight car? You know, is it more? The contract that we have, as this board is aware, there is no cost to the services that Trinity provide. They bill directly to the patient. You know, so what would it cost us to add additional vehicles for that coverage? So complicated. None of these decisions are made in isolation. So what Chief Borden and Chief Tripp are doing, what Trinity is doing, all of it is taken into context. It's looked at through the lens of the EMS plan, and then that will feed the negotiations for any extension on the contract.
Jeff, can you just answer one question, something you had mentioned, that you can't triage calls? So in Goshen, I'm just using an example of volunteer department, Goshen or Arlington, you're going to use your example of nosebleed and they get a cardiac arrest call. They can't break from that and go to the cardiac arrest.
By law, they're really not allowed to. So, you know, if you have multiple units, obviously, if I was en route to something that, you know, as a fly car with an ambulance, and maybe even basic life support ambulance and something more severe treatment, you know, I would divert to that. But if you have one ambulance that's responding to one call and they've gone en route, especially once they make patient contact, you know, it's you can't deviate from that.
And just from your expertise, so why are other states allowed to kind of make those based on behavior? That's what's sticking to me. There's a lot of stuff that we need to work out here, but
Yes,
what kind of, you know, you guys are the experts, you know what you're doing, and our state
is,
kind of.
is just different in, you know, so, you know, they expect you, I think the new ruling is they expect you to respond to 50% of your first calls. Because there's such a shortage in the state of Connecticut, for volunteer ambulances, et cetera. So, you know, if you're responding to 50% of your first call, you're doing okay. You know, and so, you know, for Trinity, we're responding, you know, we're always 100% to our first call and 100% to our second call because we have 2 ambulances that are available all the time. Now, the third call, you know, the fly cop could respond to that, but the problem is, once that flag car arrives on the scene of that third call, even if it's minor, and a fourth and a fifth call comes in, now there's nobody available for that, and that's what really runs into the problem. That's why we're using mutual aid more than we did before, because, you know, if I'm babysitting, for lack of a better term, somebody's having no food, all the other units are tied up, till we get a cardiac arrest. Now we have nobody going to, other than the fire department first responding, and then mutual aid coming in from out of town. So it's kind of a crazy system, but it's the way it is.
And I don't always like to turn this way it is, so that's why I'm just curious too. And that's above ours, you know, our pay grade here, but
Yeah, so whether
at the same time, it just that doesn't sit with me well that.
you know, other states like New York, I mean, you could wait up to half an hour, 45 minutes for an alpha type of call. So like a, you know, a fall lift assist or back pain or things of that nature. You can wait a long time for that because they're triaging those calls and those units are being allocated to the most severe calls.
Thank you.
Other questions? Let's check on whose report we're questioning here.
We're not cheap one.
We are, yes. All right, if there are no other questions for Chief Forden, I'll move on to Deputy Chief Tripp. Anything else?
I'm also American.
Okay. And Jeff, I don't know if there's
I'm
anything
gonna make
to
it.
possibly add.
No.
I mean, it's all a good conversation. I will share with the board that the conversations that Chief Forden and I started and Victor Michelle as Corporation Counsel has also been running. We did map out a timeline. You know, originally we thought we'd like to bring something back to the board by December, recognizing that there was a little more involved in this. We did meet and we said, let's aim for a January report. So we're still looking within our time frame as to what our goals were to bring this back to the board. All right, if there are no other questions on departments, I'm moving to item 9. I'm going to do motion to consider business by the mayor and not support.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benedetto. And second by Commissioner Michelle Wright, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'll start on my right with Commissioner Steve.
I'd just like to mention some police chief and the captain that the showing at the memorial service for the Bristol police officers was outstanding. I was pretty impressed with the Torrington police officers. I understand.
Commissioner Benedetto, Commissioner Craigslist.
Just take a moment to, you know, obviously continue to think of the Bristol Police Department and families of Sergeant Hemsey and Lieutenant Camonte and Officer Rado and everyone else, but just thank you, Chief, to you and your department. And, you know, I think, I know any department nearby would do this, but stepping up right away to offer manpower is, I know, not even a second thought, but just, you know, this type of cooperation and I know a connection that Bristol would do for us, God forbid we were ever in that situation, and certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure they do too. But, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bell.
And yes, we are always concerned about your safety, so we want to try and do our best to, support you and definitely supply as much as we can to our department, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Right. There are 2 additional action items that I need the board to take this evening. So before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I am going to need a couple of motions. The first one would be a motion to add an agenda item regarding the firefighter personal protective equipment. Again, if I'm adding it to the agenda, I need a motion, a second, and at least 2/3 of the board to agree to add this to the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Battle, second by Commissioner Cogswell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion that I'm looking for, and I do believe that you have it, by the way, for pulling this together so quickly for me. I'm looking for a motion on recommendation of the Gear Committee, Chief Eric Gordon and the Purchase Agent, Peggy Zuko, to authorize the mayor to act on behalf of the city to award, execute, and administer a contract to purchase approximately 10 sets of PPE at the price of $2,999 per set from Berlin Industries Inc. of Paxton, Mass. as further described in the purchasing agent's letter dated November 9th, 2022. Funding for this will be from the fire department capital account, and this is pending council approval.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Castro, second by Commissioner Spino. Questions?
Chief, Chief, I know we've worked with them in the past. Is there any concerns or any thoughts as to why we only received one? Is this pretty much the only one regionally that does this, or?
To be honest with you, I can't give you that answer. I don't know why anybody else didn't get in on the bid. That's up to an individual company, a corporation that has the one that they want to bid when we put an RFP out. The one which is the single one that we've used in the past.
Realizing your tenures are still shorter at this point, you've not heard of any issues working with them in the past, as a past vendor.
We've had very good
The next one is 6% increase. It seems like a pretty popular one, given inflation and everything going on. Is that kind of the genesis behind any increases year over year? Is that why it's 6% or?
I would defer to Chief Tripp because he kind of wrote the specs for it and all that, so he can speak better than I.
I think actually lowballing that 6%, I think they're gonna get caught. I've heard of vendors that have quoted 15% and it was actually 23%. With the market, it is out there with the increase in inflation. Nobody wants to commit to any kind of percentage after year or two.
And so they're committing to this, and is this over a certain amount of years? And that leads to my next question. Any extension of that, does that come to the vote of the board and council, or is that
Each year, correct?
and but it's on line at 6, they can't come back and say, oh, it's gonna be 10% more. Okay. And then last question, is there any reason they don't give a volume discount? Say if you had to do, I'm just throwing a number out here, 15 sets of TV, I noticed it was all straight across the board, the same amount.
When the RFP goes out, it's based on a certain amount of sets that we're gonna do. So basically we do 10 sets a year, based on our capital budgeting. That's what we go for, is 8 to 10 sets a year.
Okay, yeah, because it seemed like even if you're doing more, they were still gonna keep it the same price. Okay, thank you.
My question.
Right, we're good? I'll call the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the second motion, and I need a motion, and second, and at least 2/3 of the board to agree to add this to the agenda. The purpose of the motion is to have the Board of Public Safety appoint itself as a search committee. Do I have a motion to add this to the agenda?
So,
Thank you, Commissioner Adjourned, second by Commissioner Carlo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion is, I'm looking for a motion to appoint the Board of Public Safety as a search committee for purposes of filling the position of the deputy police chief.
so
Second. Thank you, Commissioner Bandera and Commissioner Spino. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There being no further business before the board, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So
Second, Commissioner Bandera, second, Commissioner Spino, all in favor? Any opposed?